Welcome to Friday, the 5th of February. It's Enquiry lesson number 23, I think. Right then, so today's the final lesson about plants, and I've got a PowerPoint to show you. There are a couple of links. You don't have to watch them. They are just there for further information. I found it quite nice to actually watch a real life plant to see, some real life cycle happening, and seed dispersal, just because there's only so many PowerPoints and animations and things you can take. So I thought it was just a bit of a difference. So sharing screen, and I'll go through all the resources you need for today. Sorry, a bird just flew past my window. Right then. So here are the links. Here you need 2 resources as well. And those resources look like this. The life cycle of a flowering plant. Again, you've got keywords, you've got bits of information, you've got pictures. You need to match them up and put them into the right places of this life cycle. But again, it will be clear in the PowerPoint. There is also this task. I originally had this as the lesson task, but then I found this one, which was much clearer as a learning step, and then this was further learning. I've put it smaller just because you don't necessarily do anything with the sheet. It's more just got information for you. Okay, so let's show you the links first. So it was just 2 short videos on BBC Bite Size. The life cycle of a plant. What is the life cycle of a plant? I think that one has animated bits and perhaps real life videos. It also goes through some keywords. I know the word bulb. Like some of you, that might be a light bulb. This is a bulb that is like a big seed. I was showing some to somebody the other day because it came up in your maths questions last week. And actually, a bulb, it looks like a mini onion. You get tulip bulbs and daffodil bulbs. They're like a mini onion. So this one has got dandelion. We used to call those dandelion clocks. You blow them. You have to see how many times you blow to what the time is. I don't know if that truly works, but it's more about the seeds dispersing. Okay, so those are 2 videos. They're only about a minute or so long, but they're quite helpful. Right then, onto our PowerPoint for today. Again, there's some new words, some new vocabulary that you might be learning for the first time. So just feel free to pause the video, go back to bits of the video if it will help you with your work. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Like I said in one of the lessons this week, I'm still learning a lot about plants because I haven't done much gardening in my life, and I'm trying to do some, especially with Albie. But my husband and I, over the last few years, have tried to grow things with some success, but not always. So it's definitely a good learning curve for me too. So today we're going to understand and order the stages of the life cycle of a flowering plant. So what do you already know about life cycles? You might know about life cycles about animals, maybe a frog or a butterfly. You might have learned about that in year 1 or 2 or 3, or even reception. So have a little think now and feel free to pause it. Okay, so the life cycle of a flowering plant shows the changes that happen to the plant over the course of its lifetime. Now, the reason it's a life cycle is because it continues. So even once the plant dies, a new seed has been born, or not been grown, so then it can start all over again. It's a cycle, it keeps going. Same with, for example, the life cycle of a frog. That's why here it was going around in circles, because it continues. A frog, it starts off as frog spawn, then becomes a tadpole, then a froglet, then a frog. Then the frog then has its own tadpoles, and it then continues and goes round and round. So the main stages of the life cycle of a flowering plant, there are 5 main stages for most flowering plants. So 1 is germination. Again, we'll learn about all of these in a bit. Number 2 is the growing and flowering. Number 3 is the pollination, which we learned a bit about yesterday. Number 4 is the fertilization. Again, we learned a bit about that yesterday. And the seed formation. And then number 5 is the seed dispersal. Let's find out more about what happens. So number 1, the germination, is when a seed begins to grow. So that would be, most of it would be in the ground. You plant a seed and it starts to grow, and then it starts to pop out of the earth. Okay, growing and flowering. So this is stage 2. Once the seed has germinated, the plant grows bigger and then forms flowers. So step 3 is pollination. Pollination occurs when pollen from the anther is transferred to the stigma, often by an insect. Okay, so that could be on the same plant or it could be moving from plant to plant. Here comes the insect. Fertilisation and seed formation. Now this one I don't think moves. So as you can see here, there's a piece of pollen and it travels down this tube here, down to the ovary. So the fertilisation happens when the pollen, this bit of yellow here, travels from the stigma down the style to the ovary. The pollen joins with the ovule, that's one of these little black bits here, to form a seed. The seed forms inside the ovary. So in here, a seed is formed. Seed dispersal is the final stage. So once the seeds are fully formed, the plant needs to disperse them. This means the plant needs to move or transport the seeds away from the parent plant in some way, so they don't all try to grow in the same place. Now, when we were talking about cress, I think on Tuesday, and how what plants need, they need space. Now, quite often, if, for example, a big oak tree, if it drops an acorn next to it, that acorn may try to grow, but it won't be very successful because the oak trees need a lot of space. They need lots of water. Their roots spread out really far. So the acorn needs to have been sort of blown or fallen or rolled away so that it has its own space. It's the same with all of the plants. The further they can spread out, the further their seeds can travel, the more space they will have. But there are lots of different ways that seeds can be dispersed. Here are some pictures. What do you think is happening in each one? Feel free to pause it and have a little look before we talk about it. There might be some things that you recognise here. Right, so here we've got a palm tree and the coconuts have fallen into the water. Now they'll be washed away with the tide. They might land on the same beach, they might land on a completely different beach somewhere else. And the coconut will then plant it, like fall into the sand, and it will then grow its own tree. This one is like a dandelion clock, and the wind catches them, and these are like little mini parachutes, and they blow and then travel quite far in the wind, and when they land, then the new plant will grow. These ones are poppies, and they shake. If you've ever shaken a poppy, you can hear them all shaking inside like a little mini maraca. So those shake, and as they shake in the wind, the seeds pop out. They're teeny tiny little seeds. Birds eat berries and from trees, and the seeds will be inside them. Now they'll either drop them as they're going, drop them from their mouth, or they might even poo them, and the seed will still grow there. So as the bird flies away and poos somewhere else, it will leave the seeds to then be able to grow into a new tree or plant. Here we've got a conker. I want to say it's horse chestnut. Correct me if I'm wrong. They drop off the tree either in the wind or when they're ready, and then the case breaks open and then the conker comes out, and again it can grow, a new tree can grow from that if we don't all pick them up and play conkers. Here you've got a pea and it's bursting, the pod is bursting and all the peas are flying out. And then finally there you've got carrying. So an animal, like a sheep, gets like a fur, I think it's called a fur, stuck to it, and then it travels off, and then that will drop off at some point, and then the seed can then start to grow. Now this one I was going to remove because obviously we're not in class, but I thought it's quite a fun activity. If you wanted to, you could have a little go at acting out these methods of seed dispersal. You could also, if you wanted to, draw some pictures for each one. That's up to you. That was just another extra fun activity. So today's task is to order the stages of a life cycle of a flowering plant. What are the different stages of the life cycle? What happens at each stage? Can you put the different stages in the correct order? So here we've got the pictures. You would need to cut them out and stick them into the right boxes. And then also you've got information. So the plant grows and forms a flower. The fully formed are moved away from the parent plant. The seed to grow. I think these ones actually match up with each other. Then you would need to match some keywords, or just put some keywords in there. The pollen joins with an and a seed starts to form. The pollen from the lands on the stigma and travels down the style. Oh no, that's not actually matching. So you would need to match up the words with the picture and then put them into the correct section. Okay, so that is your main task for today's lesson. Oh, and here are the answers. So going back, so once you've had a go at that, you can always look on the next page. If you're really stuck, you can look onto the next page or try and test yourself and see if you can do it without looking. But there are the answers. Finally, further learning. This sheet says all flowering plants go through the same stages of the life cycle. The main stages are germination, growing and flowering, pollination, fertilization, and seed dispersal. Can you design and create a way to represent the stages of the life cycle? This is where you could be a bit more creative. That sheet before was quite structured. This is your chance to then be creative. You could draw the different stages on a paper plate, adding arrows, and you could like spin it. You could make a poster, show the different stages. You could create a small book with one stage on each page. You could write down what happens at each stage, or you can make a PowerPoint with one stage on each slide. Or you can come up with your own idea completely. Okay, I'm really looking forward to seeing how you get on with this. I think it's really quite interesting learning about all of this. But that is it for today's PowerPoint, and also it for this week and learning all about plants. And share my screen. I hope you have enjoyed this week. I think I've learned lots, and I really can't wait for the weather to get a bit warmer and to get out in the garden and try and do some more planting. You could definitely try and do some stuff. I know that I was a bit late to it, but because you can plant daffodil and tulip bulbs in the winter, so between sort of October and December. I planted mine in January, but I'm really looking forward to hopefully them growing in the spring. And I really hope that this summer, or this spring and summer, that Albie and I can get out in the garden and we can plant some new things. What do you want to grow this spring? Whether it's at school or at home. Can't wait to find out. Thanks so much, guys, and hope you have a lovely weekend. See you next week.